electoral politics in Nigeria, and now as the elected governor of Abia State. So it really is, I think, a great opportunity for us to hear from you as a voice for good reform in governance and accountability in government, which we all know from our studies here and the work we do, not just with respect to Africa, but around the world, about the essential role of good governance in economic development, in human rights, and in allowing the people of Nigeria to experience the kind of opportunities that we know and they all richly deserve. So it's an honor, Governor, to welcome you here and ask you to come to the stage.
Okay, I can't. Dean, Professor Jim Steinberg, Professor Peter Lewis, Professor Kingsley Moalo, Professor Pat Utomi, Dr. Emil Okoro, a counselor of Bowie. Yes, my sister Roxy Ndewumadu. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me also recognize the mayor of Isialangwa South, Dr. Mwabisi Elelenta Elele, and your wife, Dr. Mrs. Melody Elele. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking you for coming all the way to join this session today. I know a lot of people are also on the visual platforms. Some joining from Nigeria, the UK, other parts of Africa, and the world. I want to also recognize you and thank you for coming. Today, we are going to be speaking about state governance and economic transition, meeting the challenges through a citizen-centered approach. I've organized the presentation into 7 major headings, from introduction to making the transition. Few things to note. Let me begin by specifically appreciating the leadership and management of the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, Washington, D.C., for this great opportunity to speak on the dynamics of state governance, economic transition, and the challenges of seeking to establish a new order amidst multiple constraints and pushbacks. It's a great honor to stand before a distinguished international audience to give my perspective on a major issue that has been at the heart of Nigeria's struggle to actualize the great promises and lofty goals it had at independence. Nigeria's age-old crisis of development is well documented, and I'm certain that many in this auditorium are extensively knowledgeable on the subject of Nigeria, including its many false starts, missed opportunities and failures, or perhaps her unwillingness to take action on the very things that have been proven to jumpstart the economic and social opportunities of nations with similar potentials. Even then, I'm glad that I will be speaking today from the advantage of experience and practical knowledge of the issues, having lived and witnessed firsthand Nigeria's paradox. To be clear, I'll be the first to admit that discussions around the realities and intrigues of state governance in Nigeria cannot be exhausted in one presentation today because of the vast nature of the topic, the limitations of time, and the fact that I'll be speaking from a limited frame of experience as a participant in the Nigerian economic and political process. I'm, however, hopeful that whatever is said and discussed here will be sufficiently engaging to ignite further conversations on the dynamic evolution of state leadership and the path to financial and economic sustainability in the long run. Permit me to disclose that I have published extensive work in the past where I had argued that the 36-state structure was exacerbating the challenge of cost of governance. I had recommended the 6-regional structure instead, as popularized by Dr. Alex Otti of the blessed memory, former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In an article I titled, "Who Moved My Fufu from Revenue Allocation to Generation?" This Day newspapers, December 21, 2020, had also warned that if crude oil dried up or became unsellable, like it happened during the COVID era, the dependence on federal allocation will see some states fail. For the purpose of today's discussion, I will assume that the number of states is given, and will try not to bring in my views, which I hold up to today, that we do not need 36 states. We will examine the subject of transition within the context of state governance in Nigeria with regard to reaching a point of reasonable financial independence and sustainability from the present system of near total dependence on periodic receipts from the center to meet many obligatory commitments, including payment of salaries of civil servants, as we find in more than 70% of the states in Nigeria as per budget 2023. The conversation shall therefore be focused on how to make states more economically independent and viable, as we find in other countries like the USA, Germany, Belgium, and even in the United Arab Emirates, where states exist with central governments in a structured federal arrangement, each having clearly stipulated lines of responsibilities and means of generating revenue independently for efficient running of government and service-oriented administration within the length and breadth of the countries. Again, it will be important to add that the demands or proposals to make states more economically viable are not entirely new. For decades, development scholars and even conscientious politicians have warned against what many call feeding bottle federalism, pointing out that it stifles growth at the subnational levels, worsens the already troubling poverty situation, and makes the system open for exploitation through unhealthy politicking, gradually weakening or outrightly destroying of critical institutions, and most tragically reduces incentives for more development-oriented politics at the subnational level. Today's event has important economic, social, and international dimensions. For starters, Nigeria is a very important country in the world and home to the largest concentration of black people on the planet, possessing rich reserves of crude oil, natural gas, and several other very valuable minerals buried beneath its soil. Nigeria has also other unique set of advantages that makes it a country of interest to development experts and global policymakers. So let me move from here a little bit and set some ground rules. We are not going to say anything that is new today. So if you had come here expecting to hear something new, I'd like to apologize for disappointing you. There's nothing novel. So everything that we are going to say here today, you probably must have heard somewhere. We have no silver bullets that will solve all our problems as states in Nigeria. Our states are different, so are their challenges, and the solutions cannot be the same. It therefore follows that if something had worked in Abia, it doesn't mean that it will work in other states. We are not in a position to pass judgment on other people. So whatever we say here is to enable rigorous interrogation and not engender conclusions. So we are not passing judgment on anybody. We just want to generate discussion and engagements. So I have talked about the work I did on cost of governance and multiplicity of this. So I'm going to go straight into looking at Nigeria from the key facts that define us. I've said we are the largest concentration of black people in the world, about 220 million people estimated. We have very rich natural resources, but insecurity remains a key challenge. It is estimated that 20% of agricultural output will be lost or will be lost due to insecurity in Nigeria. Inflation remains above 30%. High youth unemployment. A lot of our young people want to vote with their feet. The concept of Japa syndrome. The older population who should be relaxed are not. They are frustrated by the absence of robust social support system. Over 83% of states are not financially viable, and I say that in quotes. They cannot meet their obligations to retirees, they cannot meet their obligations to civil servants, and of course, electricity remains a key challenge in Nigeria. In terms of statistics, our GDP by last year is estimated to be somewhere about $477 billion. For context, Maryland, as a state in the US, has a GDP of $518 billion. GDP per capita for Nigeria, $2,200. For context, Maryland is about $65,000, and Abia is about $5,200. That's more than 2 times the national average. Exchange rate today dangling between 1,100 and 1,200 naira per dollar. Very, very huge youth population. 52% highly skilled workers plan to Japa. Our external reserves keep going down, but for good reasons. Introduction of liquidity and paying off some of the long outstanding obligations. So let's go to Abia State. The capital city is somewhere here, we all know. Land space of less than 6,000 square kilometers. Population of about 4.85 million people. Major language spoken is Igbo. Local government 17. The distribution of the population is almost 50-50, 49% male and then 51% female. Abia State is strategically located in the heart of the southeast. All the southeast states of Anambra, Imo, Ebonyi, and Enugu somehow touch Abia State in terms of border, and of course Cross River, Akwa Ibom, and rivers in the south. Still on Abia, our real GDP is about 3.53 trillion naira, and then the budget for 2024 is about 567 billion. We are noted as a major hub for local manufacturing and trading, and oil production is somewhere about 60,000 barrels from about 57 oil wells that are producing. All right. So I talked about the huge youth population. And from the numbers, about 84% of Abia people fall within 0 and 44 years. And that is a fantastic number to have, because it's all labor force. 70% of our people are involved in agriculture, and almost 90% literacy rate, and internet penetration is at about 60%. Now, history of state creation in Nigeria, I won't bore you so much with that. It used to be 3 regions in 1947 to 4 regions in 1963, and then 12 states to 19 states, and presently there are 36 states plus Abuja. And interestingly, a lot of people are still arguing and making cases for more states to be created. The creation of states for the first time in 1967 was justified as being done to bring development closer to the people. But popular opinion has it that it was actually done to ensure that Ojukwu at that time, that was leading a secession war, will lose part of the eastern region. Anyway, so whatever be the case, today there are 36 states. So the logic here is that a lot of things persist in Nigeria, including the unending agitations for new states, like I said, because of some realities of our political environment. And until we reach new points of enlightenment and expressions, not much will change. And if we're not careful, we may get to the point where every community or clan will start agitating for their own states. The conclusion for me will be to point out that while some people would consider the agitation for new states justifiable, there are more genuine reasons why the creation of new states should not be a priority at this time. And that is my position. Now, development impact of state creation in Nigeria. Proponents of state creation advocate that development will naturally follow the creation of new states. While this may be true at some levels or in some instances, where the positioning of new capitals and cities has spurred economic activities or brought about better resource mobilization, the reality across most parts of the country is that very little progress has been made on critical indices that matter since moving to the present 36 states and FCT. And looking at the numbers, the National Population Commission estimates that more than 63% of the population live in multidimensional poverty. UNICEF estimates that Nigeria contributes about 15% of the population of out-of-school children in the world. UNIDO, and this is 2022 estimates, ranked Nigeria 161 out of the 193 countries with a human capital index of 0.548. And of course, human capital index is measured by looking at quality of livelihood, standard of living, access to knowledge, and then how long people live and how healthy they live. Those are the three indices that the UNIDO pays attention to. So Nigeria ranks 161 out of 193 countries. Unemployment continues to climb sky high, and several critical institutions or industries, including agriculture and solid minerals, manufacturing and transport, are in very bad shape. Over 70% of the states in Nigeria still cannot pay salaries without federal allocation from Abuja. Most states in Nigeria suffer great difficulties arising from failure to generate sufficient revenue to effectively meet their obligations. So when we look at inability to generate revenue from within, we argue that virtually all the states, in fact I can say without any fear of contradiction, that all the states have one form of solid mineral or the other. So But then there have been problems. We have insecurity, but most importantly, the political will to invest and harness some of these solid minerals have not been a priority to governments. And it's understandable because at the end of every month, everybody goes cap in hand in Abuja, collects money, and then comes back to spend it. So if you have money that you can share, then there is no incentive for you to work hard to generate funds internally. Agriculture is another area where all the states are endowed. But of course, what we see are that Nigerians who are involved in agriculture, and there are a lot of them, practice it at subsistence level. So when you are thinking of raising funding, internally generated revenue, agriculture should be a major area to look. But if a few states can get agriculture right, it will birth a new kind of consciousness that will change the economy of Nigeria forever. And I'm looking at millions of jobs across the value chain, extensive investment, and most importantly, improve food supply for the populace, thus dealing a harsh blow to hunger and high food prices. The role of technology. While we agree that technology is important in driving IGR, as evidenced by some states that have improved IGR records in the last 10 years, it is also true that in an environment where more than 70% of the population has no means of generating income and having no real job or businesses, there's so little technology can do to significantly improve revenue. So our point is not to question the importance of technology. We agree that technology is important, but we also say that you can only tax someone who has resources. So no matter the kind of technology that you have, if the resources are not there, there's nothing to pay. As we go on in this presentation, I would talk about my definition of taxation. Now, the federal government, the state government share revenues. I'm sure we know some of the sharing formula. 52% goes to the federal government, 26.72% to the states, and the 774 local governments, 20.6%. So the formula for sharing the federal allocation I've also put on the slide there. I wouldn't want to waste time on it. So the present revenue structure does not sufficiently recognize the efforts put in by some states to contribute to the size of the national revenue pie. While there is great wisdom in recognizing the importance of population and land mass in the revenue distribution formula, one does not honestly think that such arrangement provides sufficient motivation on the part of the political and administrative authorities in the states to do more to increase internally generated revenue. While one's views may be wrong, it can be argued, as some have done, that certain principles of the revenue sharing formula in the country encourage falsification of population records in pursuit of economic and political advantages it confers on the states. And I believe that that is the reason why several decades after, we still do not have acceptable figures in terms of the population of states and, of course, Nigeria, because it's the states that make up Nigeria. And the population issue started as far back as 1911, and as we speak, I don't think we've solved it. Now, absence of incentive for revenue generation, the revenue allocation formula should be designed in ways that support the building and expansion of competitive advantages by states. Why is landmass, stroke terrain, getting the same consideration as revenue generation efforts? That's the question that our people will have to take home. So our closing argument here is that it will be to add to that, to a whole lot would have been different had the revenue generation formula been designed in ways that support the building and the expansion of competitive advantages by the state. At present, the system perhaps unwittingly hurts the incentives to turn the states into centers of active enterprise, as there are insufficient considerations for robust revenue generation efforts at the states, and where such incentives exist, they are not methodically geared towards the promotion of productive activities in ways that tackle much of the problems affecting the economies of the states, especially poverty, unemployment, and poor public infrastructure. Most tragically, what obtains currently does not encourage competition and efficiency in government. So, and this speaks to the earlier point I made, that if people can go to Abuja and then come back with funds at the end of the day, the incentive to work hard and competitively generate revenue is completely lost. Now, limited accountability by key actors in the public sector. It is estimated that close to $600 billion have been stolen from Nigeria since independence. So how does the mismanagement of public funds affect development in the states? Of course, there are always loopholes that people can always exploit. The whole argument about state creation is founded not on sound reason, but some primordial sentiments. Have senior civil servants who are eager to tutor new political leaders on manipulating accounting is with different agendas from their principles. So when you put all these together, it comes to what we call corruption. Now, it's a difficult thing to admit, but the truth is that a lot of leaders who get involved in politics and contest elections go there for reasons other than serving the people. So talking about corruption, I had set up a forensic audit as soon as I took over last year in Abia. And so that there won't be any argument, I called in one of the top 3 audit firms in the world. And not too long ago, they turned in their report. And some of the things in the report are frightening. So, some 9.3 billion naira was paid to 7 contractors for contracts that were not executed at all up till today. Another 15.9 billion naira, almost 16 billion, was paid to 63 contractors with no supporting documents anywhere in the state. Another 12 billion naira was paid to 2 contractors for contracts that do not exist. Out of this figure, 10 billion naira was on September 25, 2020. And that is almost 4 years. Paid to some contractor for the construction of Abia State Airport. We have spent time trying to locate the airport. Up to now, we have failed. In fact, one of my aides told me the other day that maybe we are using native intelligence to look for the airport, that we should seek artificial intelligence. So as we continue to look for our airport, we have also involved security agencies to help us search. And so that's just an example of what typically happens. And when you juxtapose that with pensions that were lying unpaid for about 10 years and salary arrears, just one of these heading, the 10 billion that was spent to build a non-existent airport was exactly the amount of money that our government used to take off the pension arrears. So lack of accountability, as we know, enables the mindless stealing of resources from the people, impoverishes the populace, promotes incompetence, and damages trust in public institutions. If any evidence is needed to buttress this claim, the fact that several states in the country struggle to pay salaries and pensions is all the proof one needs that the absence of accountability in the management of public resources across several states does great harm to the people. So making states more economically viable. In discussing an issue like this, we must pay attention, as I had mentioned earlier, to avoid errors arising from oversimplification. This is very necessary, as most interventions in this regard often isolate the key issues in favor of textbook methodologies that may have worked elsewhere, but would have limited application in a complex and dynamic country like Nigeria. So when you look at adoption of the principles of a free market by divesting from state-owned enterprises, removal of subsidy, which of course we must admit may hurt the economy, particularly when unemployment is high and inflation is also high. But at the end of the day, that is the way to go. Then increased taxation, of course, when you have people that are impoverished, there's so much tax that they can pay. So we have looked at a few issues. And the first one for us is leadership. For us, we believe that the quality, the skill, the capacity of our leaders matter a lot. I have done some work on leadership in the past. There was an article I wrote as far back as 2016, June 20, 2016. This day, I titled it, "The Fish Gets Rotten from the Head." And I quoted my namesake, Alexander the Great, who said, "I am not afraid of an army of lions led by a sheep, but I'm afraid of an army of sheep led by a lion." So that's just to speak to what leadership is. Even if everybody else is lame and you have the right leadership, the outcome will not be like if everybody else is smart and then the leader is dumb. And I will also quote the ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. In his famous book, he insists that the major crisis most nations face is that of leadership. This is the kind of crisis that is bound to happen when the lust for power prevails over granting people the love and care they deserve, and when the interests and the destiny of one individual become more important than those of a whole nation. This is also what happens when the interests of some groups and cliques benefiting from certain leaders are served instead of those of the people. So no matter what you say, leadership matters a lot. And we must pay attention to the leadership selection process. And of course, the next step, develop new accountability systems. How do you ensure that the people who you have given responsibility are responsible? And what do you do when you find that they are not responsible? Do you just hand over your state to them and go to bed? I don't think that's the way to go. So, and experience has shown that whatever doesn't get monitored doesn't get done. Of course, leverage innovative investment strategies. So driving investment along states' areas of comparative advantage, that can only also be done by somebody who knows what to do. Of course, agriculture, infrastructure development, and all the, of course, open up the economic space. That is the only way to create jobs, attract further investment, reduce poverty, and harness local raw materials and push the output of the state to local, regional, and global markets. So I had always maintained that tax revenues represent government's share of the prosperity that it has created amongst the populace. So the logic is that it's irrational to seek to earn significant tax revenues when the economic window is too narrow, because you cannot tax idle people or expect to make a return from idle resources. So it's very important that the leader focuses on how to open up the space as a condition for collecting taxes, because you can only tax when you have created prosperity amongst the populace. Some of the things that people have paid a lot of attention to, and we are encouraging in Abia State, is one of them is cost of governance. We have driven cost of governance so low that we're able to do a whole lot of things without resorting to borrowing. Of course, there's a lot of elbow room in our budget to borrow. But at the moment, we're still able to manage, because any cost that is not justifiable and that cannot be defended cannot be undertaken. And sitting at the helm of affairs, I ensure that I use my pen well to ensure that there's only what can be justified, defended, that can be undertaken as cost. Rooting out corruption by expanding the channels of transparency and accountability. I've spoken about that. Local non-government organizations receive financial and technical support from international partners to monitor and follow up on state expenditure, like the World Bank and other organizations have been of great help, limiting the amount of money a single authority can approve without the involvement and assessment of other officials. We're also doing that. That doesn't mean that people cannot now come together and do what they want to do. But anytime that you have more than one person committing a crime, then that is collusion. Well, I think I'll go quickly. So, what have we done differently in Abia? So, when we took over on the 29th of May, we declared an emergency on a few items. One of them was urban sanitation. Those who knew Abia very well will agree that it was reputed to be one of the dirtiest states in the country. I believe that the story has changed. It may not have been updated by Google, so but it's still early days, and we continue the drive to ensure that sanitation remains a top priority for our people. We also are investing heavily in road rehabilitation, and that was another issue that we had to deal with because virtually all the roads were either broken or impassable. And at the moment, we have completed no less than 39 roads in a period of 10 months. Thank you. And a whole lot more are in different stages of completion. We set up the Innovation and Industrial Park in Owaza. Owaza is the oil-bearing community in Abia State. And it also has a lot of gas. We are receiving positive interest in the industrial park. New green areas, improved urban housing schemes, efficient water and electricity supply are top priority, particularly electricity. We believe very, very strongly that electricity is one of the major reasons why businesses, production, manufacturing is at its lowest ebb, not just in Abia State, but in Nigeria. And I'm sure you are aware of the 20-year-old geometric project, which we supported to come to operation. It had been launched. It had been launched 2 months ago, and we also find an opportunity there because at full speed, the plant will generate and distribute 188 megawatts of power to the Aba ring-fenced island, 9 local governments in Abia State. But we do believe that Aba does not need more than 100 megawatts. And we're already in discussions, serious discussions with EEDC, Enugu Disco, to isolate Umuahia as another island, and then wheel power from geometric, excess power from geometric into Umuahia. We also believe that our people are the most important factor in everything we are doing. So we've had to look at our retirees and our civil servants and ensure that their allowances and salaries and entitlements are not only paid, but paid as a wind due, and that is by or before the 28th of every month. A lot of investments are already coming back. It's still early days, 10 months, but we can see signs that investments which had disappeared from the state, a lot of them are making inquiries and they are coming back. We paid so much attention to security, and security, just like power, is another important factor to ensuring that people are comfortable. I was looking at a report not too long ago that says that Abia and I think another state, is it Oyo, are two states that have very low crime rate in the last 6 months. And that is because we have paid a lot of attention to security, invested in it, equipped the interagency operation, codenamed Operation Crush, ensure we profile the people who are there, and the results are very positive. 35% of our budget, 15% for 2024 exclusively dedicated to health, and 20% exclusively dedicated to education. We are retrofitting all our schools and fixing all our hospitals. Shortly after we took over, we found that the state university teaching hospital in Aba had lost accreditation in the past 3 years. So, and we declared emergency on it, ensured that everything that we needed to put in place was in place. And by the time the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria came in December, they not only congratulated us, but they restored the accreditation. We have ensured that we have the best people working for the state, and it's been tough, but we've gone everywhere to ensure that we get the people who are competent, world class, to come and serve in the state. I'm happy to introduce Engineer Ikechukwu Monday, our Commissioner for Power and Public Utilities. He's in the room. Please, can you stand up for recognition? Engineer Ikechukwu Monday used to work for GE here in the United States, was headhunted by the Netherlands government to come and fix power there. And then we headhunted him from the Netherlands government. And today he's doing great things for us. Other areas, particularly the professional areas, healthcare, education, environment, and I can say that we have some of the best people working for us. And interestingly, it's not so difficult, particularly when the people see seriousness. I have not seen anybody coming to ask me for differential salaries. We don't even have money. So some of them are serving pro bono, and I'd like to use this opportunity to thank all of them. We set up Thank you. We set up the Global Economic Advisory Council, which started work. We have some of the best brains there. Our sister, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, and Professor Okeorama, honorary advisors. They attend all the meetings, and then we have some 30 more people in different places, including co-chairs, Harun Maote, a professor now at Oxford, the Emir Sanusi, Lamido Sanusi, and then of course Bolaji Balogu. Three of them are co-chairs, and they just sit down and churn out things to help us, because of course we need help. We don't know much, so we rely on them. And of course, the next thing is consistent engagement and accountability to our people on a monthly basis. There's a program that happens, my media chat, and I sit down with all media houses and a no-holds-barred session where you can ask any question. So people ask their questions and they get answers. And the ones we don't have answers to, we will also explain that we do not know, because we don't know everything. So I've documented here that there's an urgent need to evolve a new philosophy of leadership in Nigeria, one that is intent on serving the general population with sincerity. States in Nigeria have not functioned in the ways that have been intended because political patronage became the order of the day in most places, and opportunistic elites imagined the public treasury to be an extension of their private bank account from where money can be drawn at will in pursuit of narrow ends, disconnected entirely from the yearnings of the public. This practice has rendered several states economically comatose, forcing millions to flee as a way of escaping multiple social problems, including violent crimes. So making the transition, and this will be the last set of slides. So there's urgent need to evolve a new philosophy of politics and leadership in Nigeria, one that is intent on serving the general population with sincerity. Politics for many has become a career, a vehicle, not to serve and create social value, but for self-enrichment through primitive acquisition of wealth. Although there are many consensus men and women in politics, my conviction is that we can achieve more in our states if we develop a culture of having our most accomplished men and women take part in politics, starting from the selection of candidates for offices across the various political parties and beyond. It's also very important for every major stakeholder, and I mean the citizens, especially the very enlightened and conscientious ones, to mobilize votes for the candidates that best represent the values of the communities, and see that people turn out to vote en masse. This is very, very critical. A lot of people get docile. Some of them get lazy. Some do not even show up to vote. I had written an article also published in This Day on February 12, 2018, and I titled it, How Good People Elect Bad Leaders. And quoting George Nathan, an American and a journalist, 1882 to 1958, he said, bad leaders are elected by good people who do not vote. So the fact that you do not vote is a vote for the bad person. You is a denial of vote for the right person. So if you were in the habit of not voting, I'm appealing that you stop it and you get involved. I had a discussion with somebody in the room yesterday, and he told me he had quit politics. And I told him it's not possible. He can't quit politics. It hasn't even been discussed. But as I was, I remembered a quote from a gentleman called Eugene Bertolt Friedrich Brecht, and I'm sure a lot of people know this quote. He was a philosopher, lived between 1898 and 1956. And I will just paraphrase. He said, the worst illiterate is the political illiterate. He hears nothing, sees nothing, and takes no part in political life. He doesn't seem to know that the cost of living, the price of beans, of flour, of rent, of medicines, all depend on political decisions. He even prides himself on his political ignorance, sticks out his chest, and says he hates politics. The imbecile, this is a strong word, but that's what Eugene said. He said the imbecile doesn't know that from his political non-participation comes the prostitute, the abandoned child, the robber, and worst of all, corrupt politicians. The lackeys of exploitative multinational corporations, end of quotes. So, if you were thinking of quitting, please don't quit. Protecting the votes cast at the polling unit is as important as every part of the process, because from my experience, it is during and after casting of ballots that the real work begins. It involves a lot of vigilance, as any slip cannot do years and months of hard work. As someone who suffered the mishap of unfair electoral system on few occasions, I know how costly one moment of distraction at certain critical points can be. So the first recipe for transitioning from dependency to robust economic viability is for conscientious citizens to get involved in the political process, in and out of the election seasons. Rebuilding people's faith in their communities should also be considered a priority in the transformation of our states. One major reality that commentators often ignore is the depletion of hope in our state institutions, and this holds true even for many in the ruling class. Records have shown that political leaders are more responsive when dealing with an active population than when interacting with a docile or indifferent group. I've spoken about this. The citizens must learn to organize themselves to consistently engage political office holders, present the challenges in their communities, find out what the programs are in place to bring lasting solution. Lastly, the presence of responsible, vibrant, independent civil society and media organizations acting as watchdogs, keeping an eye on public expenditure and decisions of political office holders across the state is a critical step in driving the transition to economic viability in the states. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I believe that I have gotten us to think of how to fix our place, how to move, how to do the transitioning from dependence to independence and viability. And I believe the crux of the matter for me is who is your leader? Who have you vested the leadership role in? And did you do that and go to sleep? Or are you there? Because it's your resources. Even if you have a better place here, at some point in your life, you may need to face home. So I invite all of you to be interested in what is happening in your different countries. Not just Nigeria, but every country. And that's how countries develop. So according to Thomas Jefferson, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Fixing Nigeria is the responsibility of the citizens. When citizens take charge, They determine how resources are to be mobilized and how they are to be best deployed in pursuit of the welfare and happiness of all. Conclusively, the citizens must be at the center of the process of transitioning the states in Nigeria from dependence to economic viability. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for listening, and I believe all right. So I believe the floor should be open now for questions and answers. I will call one of the organizers to make further introductions. Thank you. Good. You do.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we're waiting for Professor Peter Lewis to come, and just quickly, we had the Nigerian ambassador, the Charge Affairs Ambassador Mobalaji Ogundero, represented by the Minister of Political, Ambassador Along, and of course the head of Chancery, Mrs. Titilayo Kolade. We also have Professor Edwin Ndubisi Obokri. We welcome you, sir. Professor Beniko, you're very welcome, sir. Dr. K and Mrs. Mary Amijo Amanta, you are here. My Lord, His Lordship Bishop Sunday Ndukwe Onoha, my Lord, you're welcome. Dr. Lemi Okoroji, Mr. Chijoke and Dr. Ogo Kano, Dr. Kenwa Maraka, Dr. Nwoga Abasi, Mr. Chuke Wachuku, Dr. Bere Ekunobi, Mr. Charles Ezuma, Professor Jerry Oka, Master Charles Onyado. Please, without taking much of that, Professor Peter Lewis, you can come along, please, come and moderate the question and answer. Or is it? Okay. And a few others. I'm looking at the gentleman that His Excellency told that he wasn't quitting politics yet, but since His Excellency didn't call his name, I will say that I will, sir. Yeah, but he's also one of the proud speakers we have had here. But I'm also very pleased and proud to say that I'm a distinguished alum of this great citadel. And in the course of working with my Oga here, Professor Peter Lewis, I went to a school, Government College Umwaya, and one of the things we were told that as you pass through the institution must pass through you. So I'm really very proud to say that science has really passed through me, and as a very pivotal alum and liaison in getting some of our distinguished speakers from Nigeria and Africa. As we have started again, the governor of Abia State is the very first Nigerian to deliver a lecture in this edifice, this new place. Distinguished Professor Pat Otomi and Professor Kingsley Mohalo, you did yours at Mass Avenue. And also, I'm just seeing here the member of the Governor's Party too. The Chinasa is here, the member House of Reps, candidate for Bende. Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Gabe. Can you hear me? Yes? Yeah, much better. Excellency, thank you very much for those remarks, which were deep, wide-ranging, and very thought-provoking. What we're going to do, I think, is take just a few minutes, maybe about 10, 15 minutes to take some Q&A. People can position themselves and take advantage of either one of the microphones. We want to be respectful of everybody's time, and the governor has additional engagements after this one. You don't stop, do you? But I think I'll take the chair's prerogative and begin with one question, which you briefly referenced in your presentation, but which I think in my own current analysis, my own current thinking is really critical. And that is the question of stability or order or security. As we know, security has become a critical issue across the Federation. And Abia State has not been spared some aspects of that problem. It is true that Abia is not currently facing the kinds of issues that we see in the states of the South-South, in the Niger Delta, or in the states of the Northeast, or even some of the states such as Taraba and Benue, Zamfara and Katsina, where there's a great deal of conflict between herders and farmers. But issues of banditry, of kidnapping, armed robbery, and agitations from groups who are exercising perhaps their right of speech, but who feel that the eastern region has been poorly served by the Nigerian state. Those are ongoing issues of security, and of course, it affects daily life. It affects the economy. It affects the well-being of the citizenry. So I'm just going to throw you the question, or pose it. What is to be done? What can be done by governors at the state level to attempt to confront and even reverse the epidemic of insecurity that we see?
All right, Professor Lewis, this is a very good question. And the security situation and everything around security needs to be understood from the point of the source. So when we did a study, we found that up to 80% of crime and criminality comes from involuntary sources. And by that I mean people who are ordinarily not criminals, but are forced by circumstances they find themselves to get involved in crime and criminality. And what are those circumstances? Very high rate and level of poverty, unemployment, hopelessness, lack of belief that the system can do anything for them. So, and it's very easy to get them enrolled in crime and criminality. So for those kind of people, what you do is to address the core issue. So the first thing is to give people hope and let them believe that the system cares for them. The second thing that you also need to do is for those who do not have jobs, you have to start a process that convinces them that what you are doing will get them jobs. For those who are skilled and talented, like majority of the people in Abia, you have to create a process by which they can be supported. We set up a cooperative group, cooperative association in all the local governments. The young people who are registered with the cooperative society receive some money from time to time, to support their businesses. Just get them not a whole lot of money, just get them off the streets, get them to do something. They could be selling water, they could be selling akara or something, just something small, just get them busy. And you'll find that they will not be available for criminal activities. So, but then the voluntary criminals are the ones that you now have to deal with the force of coercion of the state. And that's when we set up Operation Crush. We were very clear about those kind of people. And what has happened is that it's paid off. In the last several months, we've only heard of one major kidnapping. And the kidnappers actually came from outside Abia State, from a neighboring state, and we located them because we also have gadgets to monitor them. But then we thought that the terrain where they kept the gentleman was very dangerous, and if we struck, we would probably have lost him. So we waited them out. After 11 days, they released him. And the head of the criminal gang was on his way to Turkey, and we picked him up in Lagos. He's cooling his feet in Omar here today. And his assistant was in Port Harcourt, and we picked him. He's also in Omar here. So the message and signal we send is that we may not stop you, but if we get the report, we would get you anywhere you are. So we are very resolute about insecurity, because if you allow it, then you will not be able to do any other thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I see the gentleman in the blue is going to be our last question. No, that's you. Yes. So we have this group of people here, and we have 3 questions here. Yes. In the back. Yes. No. I see. 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's it. 4. Okay, so I'm going to take a question from each side. We'll do it in groups of 2, and we'll try to make it quick. So please make your questions brief, and the governor will make quick interventions. Thank you. Yes, first.
Good afternoon. So thank you so much. It's such an honor to speak to you. I'm actually an American Nigerian, and I went to Nigeria 10 years ago, and you actually gave me my very first big business meeting with First Bank. You'll never remember, but it helped me become stronger and become an entrepreneur in Nigeria. So I have a hard question for you. So as an entrepreneur, tech startup, I believe strongly in private partnerships to fuel Nigeria's growth. And as you've reported, there's the money is not in the system, right? So with my company, I went out, excruciatingly raised funds to do a project with a state, not yours, of course, but another state. Even came up with a way that the state would make revenue from this deal to revamp their healthcare system and help improve distribution and ensure safe medication distribution within the state. We signed everything was done, and I'm sure people might know this type of story. We have on videotape another company coming in, bribing, and then stealing our deal, and then everything fell apart, and no project is being done in that state at all again. And so how will you maybe revolutionize the way that private companies can actually support overcoming and tackling a lot of these really, really hard challenges, so that there's a sustainable improvement in these states, because private companies like mine can support, but a lot of the times we don't have the opportunity, or we get completely frustrated and lose a lot of money trying to support.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, one here, and then, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Uzoma Wanchuku. I'm an adjunct prof at Capital Tech University in cybersecurity. I'm also the owner of Volkman Express Incorporated, a cybersecurity company and a software development company. I have 2 questions for you. One is, you showed a data that talked about 58% internet penetration in Abia State. Abia State is one of the business hub for Nigeria, especially Aba. I grew up partly in Aba. my uncle used to run a gas company in Abia. And one of the things he had was reaching out to customers. We have internet now, we have AI. How are you? Do you have any policy on helping startups in the states to support them like the U.S. government does it? If you have an issue like the kidnapping issue, they come up with solutions. You sponsor them, and they come up with solutions that can help the states. Do you have that? And then I used to be the president of Nigerians in Diaspora organization here in Washington D.C. And one of the things we worked on was trade deals and engaging other organizations to do business in Africa. Now, is your government and other governors and those in the governance structure in Nigeria talking about trade deals with countries like America and how it affects local companies and also companies like us trying to bring in technology or new things to Nigeria? And then finally, online marketing. How are we? Do you have a marketplace for projects and contracts where people can tap into and help the government deal with issues in the state?
Thank you very much. That was very succinct. So we have a question about business development, and we have a question about your trade policy and access for startups and related private sector issues. So these are good complementary questions. Maybe you can talk.
All right, so let me start with the lady. I didn't get your name. Okay. All right, so I'd like to start by sympathizing with you for the experience you went through, maybe because you didn't come to Abia State. So now that you know, I have a senior special assistant on ease of doing business. And her role is just to remove all the bottlenecks and all the hiccups and make life easier for people who want to do business in Abia. And she is assessed based on the results and the outcome. So the kind of experience that you had, you won't have it in Abia. So we have a robust system to support the private sector. We actually do believe that it is the private sector that should do business. But we also don't go to bed hoping that the private sector will do everything. There are the areas that personally I believe will not be of interest to the private sector. Before you get the private sector impact on education and on health, the government must just be in the forefront. So we are open for business, and I'll invite you to come to Abia, and that experience you will not have it. Uzoma Nwachukwu, you are pushing on startups. Yes, in fact, in our manifesto, it is one of the major items, because we know that Aba is a business hub, and a lot of people have great ideas. In fact, if you pay attention, you will see very young people doing great things, and all they require, somebody was able to use disused cartons and all those to put together a generator that everything came from Aba, that just is able to light maybe 2-3 bulbs. Just imagine where he gets support, then he can improve. So we do have trade deals. Yes, in fact, it's also part of the things that I've done here, like yesterday and day before yesterday. It's still early days, but I can assure you that first of all, for us, we believed that we need to get our products to that level where we can compete favorably with the market out here, so that we we are working on it. And then the final question you asked is about online marketing. We are not there yet, but we have a robust team that handle digital economy and SMEs, and they are working on the Abia marketplace. And I believe that by the time they are ready, we will launch it. It won't go beyond this year. And I believe that you can sit in the comfort of your home outside Abia State and do business with Abia traders. So that will be it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move as briskly as we can. We have a hard stop at 6:30, but we'll see how many we can get in, please.
Okay. Good evening, Your Excellency. My name is Louisa Chioma Lifu. I'm an IT consultant, and I also run an IT consulting and training firm here in the U.S. My question is related to technology. During your presentation, you mentioned that there is little that technology can do to drive up IGR, but what about other areas, socioeconomic challenges like in the health sector, education, and even with security? How can technology enablement be used to provide improvements in these areas? And also, Your Excellency, I read that you were planning to create a technology hub in Abia State. How do you think this hub will, improve the condition of the state in terms of facilitating more technology jobs and solving some of these socioeconomic challenges? Thank you.
Thank you. One over here.
Thank you, Governor. I'm a student here. I wanted to ask your approach to developing the cities of the future. You already said you have a growing urban population, a large rural workforce, a very large youth population. All of these factors make it very difficult to sustainably grow cities. I know you said that what works in Abia State doesn't necessarily work elsewhere, but I want to know if you could abstract any lessons from your experience, because 21 of the 30 fastest cities in the world are in Africa. And what happens when you have the factors that you mentioned is it's very easy for informal settlements or slums to form around cities. And I'd like to hear your response to how you think you manage this, how you create sustainable cities, and if you can in your response address the criticism I've heard from others that states are not necessarily open or they're not willing to address slum development because these are people that are largely untaxed. And finally, I like the God's own state slogan. I worked in state government previously, a lot of Christians in government, and a debate that commonly happened was what should the state do in communities? What should the church do? So as you address your growing cities and think about community needs, what would you say is for the church to do and what is for the state to do? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Chioma. I picked that one. So your question is around technology, and I think we have it all fixed. Technology is, like you rightly mentioned, we are setting up a technology hub, and we're not doing it alone. We have the likes of MTN working with us, trying to bring in proper broadband technology for Abia State. I think they are somewhere in Port Harcourt now, and they have been to visit with me a few times. And I believe that in the next 1 year, that the technology hub will be up and running. But there are a few that exist even as we speak, and they are set up by individuals and organizations. But our opinion is that we need to do a whole lot better than what we are doing today. And if you don't get the broadband technology right, then there's very little you can do. Now the gentleman that asked the question, let me start from the second one, and that's the role of the Christians and the church and what they can do. Yes, we do have a lot of, a majority of our people are Christians, Of course, we also do have Muslims, and it makes it because majority are Christians. The issue of religion does not now constitute a problem. My chief of staff is a pastor, and I have a few other Christians that are working for us. So it's a positive. The first question they asked, I didn't quite get it. Is it somewhere?
How to manage urban growth and slums.
Okay. Urban growth and slums. Yes. Even the many parts of Aba before now had become slums, but we are retrieving them. All you require is put appropriate infrastructure. The land value just goes up. And what I've seen a lot of times is that people just sell their houses, and the next day you see the houses are going down, and then we are creating new cities. Okay, expanding, we believe that at some point that Umuahia and Aba will be joined together. A lot of our investments are between Osisioma, Isialangwa South, Isialangwa North, and before you know it, you'll be in Umuahia. So we are managing that very well. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can take at least two more. So one here and one here.
Good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was very insightful. My name is Maria Amaka Asuliman. I am a leadership development consultant by profession. I'm also the CEO of AMA Consulting. We're a government contracting firm. So we provide professional services and IT services to the U.S. federal government. And my question, first, I have a gift for you. I recently wrote this book on leadership, and I would love to offer it to you. And my question is really around that. So culturally, as a people, we have this mentality that leadership is something that is for a selected few, and that leaders are born and not made. And so there's not a lot of investment into leadership development and really helping people develop their competencies to lead. And so while we know that there's a leadership crisis, I think we're missing an opportunity, given the very young population, to start to groom and train leaders for not just the future, but now. So what is your philosophy around leadership development as a form of education, not just something that's arbitrary? We say, yes, we want great leaders, but what are we doing about it?
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. Oh.
Yeah, okay, sure. We can do that. Well done. Get a picture. Well done. Thank you. And then this will be our final question.
Actually, right now, I wish I also had a gift for you, Your Excellency, but I do not. Yes, so thank you very much, Your Excellency. I really loved the presentation, and I've tried to streamline the questions I have. I had so much stuff come to mind when you were speaking. First, my name is Emmanuel Animashao. I'm a medical doctor. I came from Nigeria, and I'm currently a MPH MBA dual degree candidate here at Johns Hopkins. My questions for you are actually in two realms. So one is a political question. I know not so many people want us to go into the politics, but I'm going to do that. And then the other is on governance. First thing, the politics. Shortly after you came in, you made a statement, and I think it sort of like generated some discussions on Twitter. It was about you saying you wanted to open up Abia to everyone, like especially Aba to everyone. I'm someone who believes, I'm Yoruba, but I believe so much in what Aba can offer. In my MBA class, there was a day I specifically told my colleagues that almost everything we discuss, people are already doing in Abia, in Aba and Nnewi and places like that. But I think we're at a time currently in Nigeria where there's a lot of systemic tribalism. So much stuff happened in Lagos, which I know you're aware of over the election period. But how do you try to balance that with what your people think? Because those were like the discussions that came up. Like you trying to open up to everyone, whereas other parts of Nigeria seem to be, the political tone from leaders across different zones seems to be some sort of tribalism. But you then saying that as a leader who just came in, how do you balance that with, what people think, as well as advancing your own politics so that, you remain the favorite of your people? Also, what role do you see yourself playing in terms of advancing this new idea? The elections happened, we know what happened nationally, and then right now you are the state governor. I think so many people in Nigeria look up to you now to see what you do, because whatever you do is something that can speak for your party against the next election. So what role do you see yourself playing in terms of like advancing that new idea beyond Abia State, perhaps to your region, and then helping your party nationally? And then on the governance side, you mentioned something about, the autonomy thing, and I just want to ask this so that, to increase my own knowledge as to like what your perspective is on it. How do you balance between state autonomy in terms of saying like state policing or like management of natural resources in the state? I'm from a state, Osho State has so much good, but there's so much problem going on with that. But like in terms of saying, if we have a new system where states have the power to manage some of these things, have its own like security systems, like have control of the natural resources, whereas we already have a country where there are no institutions that protect us against corruption. So we see a system where if we open it up to all state governors, we might have wrong results because corruption worsen it, but then we might also have better systems because people like you might manage them better. So how do we balance between these two sides?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so we're pretty much at time. So we have a question on leadership development, a question on state autonomy, and a question on new ideas and leadership.
All right. Okay, let me start with Maria Amaka. Thank you very much for the book. You can be sure I will read it. I read. My philosophy about leadership development will go back to what you are today. So just think about what you are, how far you've come. There's absolutely nothing you did or you do that you didn't learn. Even from the point of maybe crying, that's probably what you didn't learn. So when you were born, you had to cry for them, for the people around to be sure that you are alive. But after that, every other thing you learn. Walking, you learn. So I strongly believe that it is leadership can be learned. I don't agree that it's inborn. Of course, you can have some advantages, but then you can learn. So, and I believe that people can be taught leadership. And the book you wrote is one of the ways to teach people leadership once they read. So I hope I've answered your question. I must thank you for my book once again. Emmanuel Animation, your questions triple barreled. Tribalism, and then how it conflicts with my position of opening up the state and Aba to everyone. Even if you go to Aba today, you will see the Yoruba community, you will see very strong Hausa community. There's a Professor Abraham that ordinarily comes from Cross River State or Akwa Ibom State. He was born in Aba, and so there's no way Aba can work without being open to everyone. Majority of the people that live in Aba don't come from Abia State. That's the truth. So I also do believe that it's when people don't have anything to say, that's when they descend to the arena of tribalism and religion. And that doesn't divide us, that doesn't make us any different. So I think my people are happy with it, and we will keep opening up the place. So anybody that is shutting down his place is his loss, and it is our gain, because we are open for business. Okay, and then you asked my role in advancing new ideas. For now, it's nice to hear you say that a lot of people are looking up to me, but the truth is that the job I have is for Abia State, and and I'm just looking at Abia State. So what we are doing is local. It is just restricted to our place to ensure that we pull our place out of where it had been. Your question about autonomy is a very difficult question to answer, but it's also easy. The issue of autonomy can be defined differently from the way you understand it. I have said clearly that if tomorrow you don't have oil anymore, or oil becomes unsellable, then 80% of the money that is shared in Abuja will disappear. So you must be forced somehow to begin to look at alternatives, because it's that money that we share in Abuja that's making us look like a unitary government. So my own suggestion is that people, in spite of the money, people should go back and begin to look at their competitive advantages that they have, so that they can also augment whatever is coming from Abuja. And in the event that nothing comes from Abuja, you'll be able to survive. 3 states today can survive based on their internally generated revenue. Only 3 states out of 36. So you can see that it's not working. So either we accept it now, or we will be forced to accept it later, because it must happen. Maybe not in our generation. When you talk about state police, there's also a debate going on, and governors do not completely, all of them do not agree. A majority do agree that it's important to have state police, but that doesn't also rule out the federal police. It's just to strengthen, because at the end of the day, every security, just like politics, is local. When you have a chief security officer who is a chief security in name, but not really a chief security officer, sometimes when there are disagreements, you find that it affects the security architecture of the state. But we are lucky in Abia that we do agree with all the security agencies, even though they report to their service chiefs in Abuja. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're very grateful for those who posed questions. We apologize for the small number of people who were not able to get in. We have to relinquish the space and be kind to our staff. I want to conclude by giving a strong vote of thanks to Gabriel Iboko, our alum, to the Africa Club for collaborating, and of course, most of all, to His Excellency, Governor Alex Otti of Abia State, for being so generous with his time, his insights, the scope of his thinking, and his responsiveness to a whole range of questions and constituents. And if the governor has a few moments as he departs, perhaps he'll have an opportunity to engage with some of the people who didn't get to ask questions. Governor, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Professor Peter Lewis. The quick recognitions, we have Chief Owoka Okwa, we have Dr. Iman Wade, we have Dr. Laurie Lewis up there, we have Reverend Father Dr. Pat Uju Okahelam, who I saw standing but he couldn't ask his question. and then Raphael Obenwa, who is the Chief Financial Officer for City of Alexandria, and Dr. K. Enya. And Professor Peter Lewis, we want to thank you so very much. And our team, the President of the African Students, Noel Boyd, President, she worked very hard. Felicity, right here, who also has an African Nigerian ancestry. These have been very wonderful. And at some point, we had changed venue 3 times, Prof knows. This place is 350 capacity. At some point, we had about 195. Yeah. So we tried to get every person well accommodated because you would have been suffocating elsewhere. So we thank you so very much for honoring our invitation. May God bless you all. And then as you step out, please, Joy Morris, who is the facilitator, the facility manager, has your package because you can't eat or drink anything in the theater. So you pick up your package. And for those who parked in our parking space, please, you have another 20 minutes because the parking garage closes at 7 o'clock. Okay.